let's just sew whatever. Hello everybody, welcome back to my channel. In today's video we are making the Elora backpack from Papaya Designs. It's such a good bag. I love it so much. So the major changes I made were slip pockets on the side, which I go over how I made those pattern pieces, and then I created this back slip pocket as well. Super simple changes, very easy to do. For this one here, I did add the front expanding pocket. It's actually really awesome. It will hold so much stuff. It's a good, like, oh, just throw that in there, you know? And you can still get to it with it zipped. So it's a really good option for your phone slip pocket too, because you can get in there. I did do this free motion quilting on the front flap, and then on the inside I added expandable pockets. I did not add the side pockets with mesh or the zipper pocket here. I just didn't think it was something I would need, so I just didn't add it. Overall, absolutely love this pattern. My interfacing recommendations would be to skip on the second layer of Peltex. This totally depends on your materials, of course, but I kind of explain that this right here with those 2 layers of Peltex on the back, 2 layers of Peltex on the bottom creates this like corner so you can't sew the curve. So for this bottom, I did Decaville Light on the outside, and then I did the Peltex on the lining. And then I just have 1 layer of Decaville Light in my back panel. I think I would have liked another layer of Decaville Light, but because I was piecing this, I didn't. You don't want to add your interfacing and then cut it to piece it, so keep that in mind. It is a bag that's finished with binding, so if you're not into that, you might not be a fan of this bag, but it's super easy on those side panels. Turned out really good. This is the second one I made. My first one I did just for fun, for me. So I wanted to not have the big front pocket, so I cut this zippered pocket, and then I realized my flap was gonna cover it completely, so I added this little overlay. Probably should have used vinyl, but I kind of like the pop and it's just for me. So I did a zippered pocket here, in which you would just, kind of like the back slip pocket, you just slice it where you want to add that zipper, and then add 2 pieces of lining fabric for that. And then I added, of course, the side pockets. And then on the inside, I added 2 accessory slip pockets because I have a MacBook and my iPad Pro that I wanted to keep separate. Now, this is a super easy thing to do, a super easy thing to do as well. However, make sure you don't add your foam into the seam allowances for these 2 pieces on top of the Peltex. Way too stiff, way too sturdy. Sorry. So that's what that looks like. And then I have the zippered pocket there. Again, I opted to not add that pocket. Structurally, like I said, I think I would say Decaville Light in place of Peltex, and you're gonna love it. And then if you're adding these accessory pockets, foam outside of the pocket seam allowance. Because right here you can see I had some issues. It's still caught in the seam, like everything's sewn well, but I'm in that there. Ugh. It's just so beautiful. So this one's for me. I used vinyls that will be available on my website. This one is coming in December. It's a 1mm thick microfiber backed vinyl. It literally feels like leather. It's so soft, easy to work with, luxurious. And then this one is an accessory weight of the same backing. So it's about half the thickness and great for domestics. So I'm really excited for you all to check those out. If you're not already subscribed, I would love for you to subscribe and enjoy the tutorial. I'm gonna start off with my straps. Since I have fresh bobbin thread, So I'm using 1-inch hardware. So I have my straps cut to 4 inches by about 40 inches or 36 inches, whatever you decided to make your straps. And we're just gonna do a normal, regular old strap where it's double-sided tape in the center. Fold those edges in and then fold that on top of itself. And if you want to mark out a 2-inch line, you absolutely can. And then fold the long raw edge into that 2-inch center line. I'm still not used to the camera being directly above my head, so I apologize if anything is out of view. I've definitely taken all of the comments, good and bad, into consideration. And I really think this above view is helpful, so I'm going to continue to try and utilize it where I can. All right, so I've got my stitch leg set to 4.5. You could set it to a 5 if you wanted, but I wouldn't go any shorter than 4.5. And we're just gonna follow at 1/8 of an inch or so from the outside edge. And I'm just folding that over as I go. And as I get to the end, I'm leaving my needle in, sewing across the short edge, and then I'm just turning it and sewing along the other side. And then again on the top, sewing across the top. And then trim your extra threads. And then I like to just trim away any of the extra fabric above that stitch line, so it's a nice even edge. Then you can edge coat that if you wanted to, or add a strap end, but for this being a backpack strap, I don't know that it's super necessary. And then we're just going to repeat that on the other side, and I'm going to set these aside for later. I have a bunch of changes I've made to this backpack. It is an incredible pattern as it's made. I just want to throw that out there. The only changes I've made are like, you know, this might be nice or something. So keeping that in mind, follow as you wish, but I will be going over those changes. The vinyl that I'm using is going to be available on my website in November, I believe. It's the same microfiber backed vinyls that I've been carrying, but it's like an accessory weight version. It's half the thickness of the other vinyls that I've been carrying. So instead of 1 millimeter thick, it's 0.6 millimeters. And it still feels sturdy. So I'm really excited to play with it. This will be the first like actual handbag I've made with it. But I just thought like, wow, this will be incredible for domestic machines. So I hope you'll check it out. We're calling it the Luxe Vinyl range because they really do feel like leather. Like right now, this feels like a well-skived leather. It's crazy. The flap of this bag is very intimidating, but it's actually really easy. So there are the backpack straps out of the way. I'm gonna go ahead and work on my handle really quick too. So I know I'm going super out of order from the pattern, but it is what it is. Where did I put that? There it is. So this is my grab handle. And for this, all I'm gonna do is tape the center. Fold those long raw edges into the center. And then mark like 1.5 inches on either side. I'm just using a silver marking pen. This wipes off of vinyl. And I'm just gonna stitch from that line to the other line. Back stitching to start, and then back stitching to end. And then pull those threads to the other side and tie off or, you know, seal it. And then that is your grab handle ready to go. Okay, next I'm gonna go over the side pockets that I have added. So I'll show you the pattern piece I created and how I created it. You just need to make sure you have your side panel piece. So this is that full piece here. And what I did was I just traced up to this tape line. I thought that would be really good. I traced that out on a piece of paper, and then I measured 1 inch wide on either side. So I measured 1 inch out, 1 inch out, and then I just connected that to the bottom, kind of following the slope of the pattern. You could definitely make these wider if you wanted, but I feel like 1 inch was plenty. You could definitely even make them more narrow so that they're just little slip pockets, or you can add the netting pockets that are on the back, on the inside to the outside as well. Totally up to you. Also, we were trying to get a passport photo for Dorothy, so that's what this just little scrap piece of paper is. So I'm gonna go ahead and get started on those since it's a big change that I've made to the pattern. So grabbing the side panels on the exterior and the lining, and then those side pocket pieces. I tried to organize this all together. It's a lot of stuff. All right. So make sure that you mirror those pieces because the side panels are a mirrored piece as well. So I've got my lining pieces mirrored and my exterior pieces mirrored, and then my exterior pockets mirrored. Say mirror again. And so I'm just going to sew that together along the top. Right sides are together. Fold this up, fold that down, and then we'll just top stitch that and baste all the way around those edges. And then with this vinyl and using the printed waterproof canvas for the lining, it's not really adding a ton of bulk. I I will have showed the first one I made and talked about how bulky it was, and that's because I was using a full thickness vinyl and I added 2 layers of foam. So like that's totally on me. If I were sewing through a single layer of this vinyl on this machine, it would not like it because it's thinner. So I'm just gonna trim off the excess lining fabric because I rough cut that piece out, and then I'll baste all those layers together. So make sure that you're matching up the shape of the bottom. They have a very different curve. There's like a flat and then a very round. So make sure you're taking note of that. And that your lining is wrong side up, your exterior is wrong side down. Just clipping that together. Line up the bottom shape, clip that together. And then because it gets bigger on those sides, you're just gonna pull it up and bring it in to match those raw edges. So it creates a 3D pocket. And then we'll baste all of that together. I'm gonna use a stitch length of like 5.5. All right, and there are the side panels completed. Okay, the other changes I made to this pattern were for the back panel. So I really wanted a back slip pocket on the back panel. So I went ahead and cut the back panel at 10 inches. So it's technically like this. So I believe this would be 3 inches. And what I did was I cut the same size for the lower half. So this is a 10-inch by 12-inch piece. This becomes the slip pocket, and then this becomes the top back. And I've cut this piece with an extra inch. So technically I think it was like 11 inches I cut it to. No, 10 inches. So you cut 2 10 by 12s. Anyway, so I'm gonna sew the top half of this together. Using like a 3/8 inch seam allowance. And then I'm gonna sew these pieces right sides together. Like I said, this is the slip pocket now. I have not interfaced any of these pieces. If you do this and you do add your Peltex, make sure that you interface it afterwards. But I was thinking that Decaville Light would actually be a really good way to interface the back panel. It's gonna add that structure, but it's not gonna add the insane amount of bulk that the Peltex did. So I'm top stitching the back panel on the vinyl side. And then kind of like our side pockets, I'm just gonna press this pocket open, wrong sides together. Like that. And now these are gonna get laid together, right sides together. And you wanna make sure that your piece matches the size it should be. So I believe that's what, 13 by 12? So I'm gonna have an inch here showing, just about. So I'm gonna clip this together at the size that it needs to be. However, I will need to close off this pocket. So what you can do is trim off that excess and then sew those 2 layers together. And now we're gonna be adding our back strap connectors later. So you want to make sure that that pocket is folded up and out of the way so that we don't accidentally sew through it, making our pocket shorter, because those back connectors get sewn kind of at an angle down here. So I mean, it's totally up to you if you want to sew through them or not, but this is how we're doing that. I'm just gonna tack this in place so it doesn't shift on me. Again, making sure I'm not sewing through that pocket lining. So that is our back panel with a slip pocket. I'm gonna go ahead and start on the front flap now. I would say this is a very time-consuming part of the bag. It's probably the most skill-based, and like I said, it's just a little bit tricky. So keep that in mind, go slow. I'm cutting 2 zipper tape lengths as directed by the pattern, and then I'm cutting my zipper pocket a little bit longer than need be, because I like to have excess zipper tape to help me keep my zipper pull safe. So I'm gonna iron all three of these zipper tape pieces, I'm only going to be adding a zipper pull to one at the moment. The pattern does say to add it to your zipper tape, but I tried it the first time and it was fine to not, because you're just going to pull it off anyway. I think it's just to kind of like verify that your zipper tape works correctly. So nothing wrong with that. And then the other hardware that we need a total of 3 zipper pulls. We need 2 1-inch square rings, 2 1-inch slide adjusters, and then a magnetic snap with washers. Oh, wait, oh yeah. I need 2 washers, 2 pieces. Okay, we're good. So it's really, really hardware light, which is great. So I always like to iron my zipper tape. It makes it nice and straight. I am using my zipper tool, not sure, yeah, you can kind of see it, to attach the zipper head onto my longest piece of zipper tape. And then I'm going to set this one aside. For now. We'll come back to these pulls in a little bit, and then this hardware can just go in the bottom. Okay. So I've got my 2 exterior side panels and my 2 lining side panels. I'm gonna add some double-sided tape to these pieces. If your fabric is directional to your flap, you will want to line these up and then add your tape. So your tape would go where your zipper is being attached. I am going to be doing some free motion quilting on my flap, as you guys have probably seen me do on other bags. I'm really into it at the moment. And then again, with your lining pieces here, if it's directional, keep in mind where you're adding your tape. For my flap, the interfacings I've decided to go with are foam and Decaville light. So I don't have any interfacing in these side panels. I don't think you really need to interface those. And then for my flap, I'm just adding foam to the front, and then I've got Decaville light on the back. So these two together made a really nice flap. Definitely something a domestic machine can still handle as well, or should be able to, I should say. So I'm gonna speed through the free motion quilting portion of this because it's not something you really need to do, but it is really fun and satisfying to do for me. But I'm just using a silver marking pen. I'm gonna just kind of scribble out these flower pieces. There really is no like form or function for me as far as this. You just want them to be loose. And whatever you're sketching out or quilting, just keep in mind it may not look that way in the end. So be flexible, be open to change. This flap would also be really good for like a statement panel. I would say probably about this first 8 inches or so are what you see on the bag, and then the rest of it kind of folds to the back. If you are doing a lot of quilting on this piece, as far as like lines, definitely quilt it first and then cut it down. With the roses, I don't find that there's a lot of shrinkage, so I'm never that worried about it. And I just want to make sure that like I've filled in all of the areas fairly well. So like over here, I don't need to do a whole lot. And like in this area, I might want to add just a little line to keep it consistently done. So I'll just go ahead and time lapse through this part. All right, so the machine oil for some reason on this vinyl didn't quite work, but I was able to get a little bit of water on this wet wipe just to make it a little wetter. It's pretty dried out, I'm not gonna lie. And that worked really well to get off all the pen marking. So that's good. And then I'm just gonna trim off all of my extra foam. And we've got the foam pretty much compressed along all those side seams, so it really isn't super bulky or dense. But if you need to trim it out even more, you probably could. So that's our flap. It's so satisfying to touch. That's my favorite part about doing this. So now we're gonna work on the zippers that go on the side. So I'm just gonna hit the ends with a lighter really quick. We don't want any of that to fray, at least not too much. We're gonna mark each zipper with a line that's about 1/4 of an inch from the top edge. And that's just gonna help us put these back together. And then you wanna mark like left and right. I'm just gonna do like a circle and a star. Because I'm not good at left and right scenarios. So there's something fun about me. So again, I'm gonna keep my lighter close by. What you want to do is you just want to gently pull these layers apart. So what I like to do is just pull on one and push on the other to separate it that way. And then I'm going to clip these together at a 90-degree angle, lining up those raw edges. And instead of tacking, I'm just going to use my lighter to heat it up and then tap it together to seal. So again, I've folded my zipper together so those raw edges are nicely connected. Heat that up and just pinch until it melts together. So there's that. Okay, and you're doing this on the end that you didn't mark. So those are marked, and I'm doing this to the bottom end. So you want to fold. I'm pushing this part of the zipper in and the other part of the zipper on top of it. It's definitely tricky. I've been doing this for years. Don't touch it if it's too hot. And try to avoid touching the nylon part of the zipper, as that will be the hottest part. Okay. And now we're just gonna separate them. So you want to take one circle and one star, put the other ones aside. I'm going to grab my double-sided tape and add a little piece right along the long edge before the triangle of the flap. And then this gets laid face down. I'm trying not to get my head in the way, but I really need to see this up close. So lining up the top edge, lining up that side, the raw edges, and setting that into place. And then if you want to baste stitch that in place, I wouldn't blame you. I'm probably going to as well, because this is a real statement and we don't want any errors. So again, I'm gonna try to not get in the way, but I still need to see what I'm doing. Bring it here. Maybe that'll help. So, and you don't want to push or pull on your zipper too much. That will cause wonkiness. All right, and then I'm just gonna baste that in place. We've already got our tape on, but just in case. And now we're gonna put our magnetic snap on the flap. Gotta mark that out. I'm gonna grab the outie portion of my magnetic snap and a washer, and then grab this again. I'm gonna line up the center of my washer on the marking and then mark out those two parallel lines. I think this refill is like empty. Yep. Okay. Okay, I can see them well enough. That'll be fine. That'll do. Okay, so I'm gonna very carefully seam rip these open. You can add a little bit of glue or fray check to that area if you'd like, and then slide on my magnetic snap and my washer. And then you can add another little piece of interfacing or a scrap of fabric to help interface that as well. And then you could even put a piece of duct tape over it if you'd wish. Set that aside, set that aside. Okay, and then right sides together. Good good trick. Oh. This is another good way to see if my pieces have shrunk at all. And I don't think it did. Pretty proud of myself, actually. So line all that up. And we're gonna sew around the outer edge. Okay, now the only place I'm gonna trim down is at the front curve and just ever so gently where those zippers meet again on a curve. There, there, and there. If you want to kind of snip into the flap, you can, but do not cut through your zipper tape. Do not cut through your zipper tape. It would be very sad, like really sad. Eventually it could start to fray and come out of your seam, and then your backpack is, I don't want to say useless, but it won't work as well. So we're gonna flip this out. And I'm just pressing into the curves with my finger. You can use a tool if you want. And then if you can, I would iron from this backside so that your zippers kind of straighten out and those seams are nice and crisp. I just did a really quick steam press. And I'm gonna set my stitch length to a 4.5. I'm gonna make sure my zippers are straightened out and start tap stitching. And then right in this area, if it isn't straight, make sure you kind of roll the seams back and forth and then just go nice and slow. And be careful where your zipper meets the flap. It could be a little bit bulky, especially for a domestic machine. And then do not sew over your teeth. Like right now as I'm doing this, if you sew over those teeth, you're gonna make it harder to attach the zipper pull. So I'm just gonna trim off my excess fabric. That. Oh, it's so pretty. I omitted this back zipper pocket. I probably should have stated that sooner, but if you're gonna add that zippered pocket up there, you'll wanna do that first. All right, so now I'm gonna grab these pieces, my 2 exterior and my 2 lining. There is no right or left for my pieces, like as far as a fussy cut or anything like that. So I'm just gonna clip these together, sew it, and then line it up. But you do want to make sure they're going in the same direction. So starting at the top, lay that face down, clip in place. So you can see how they're mirrored of each other. That's what we want. And then we'll add the lining side. I'm going to open that up and top stitch through the exterior and the lining next to the zipper. Okay, now it's time to attach the zipper pulls. So I'm grabbing a zipper helper again. You could definitely do this by hand. I'm just not good at it. But then this side goes to this side goes to this side. So grab one zipper pull, this side, this side. And they line up at an angle, and then you can slide them down. Oh yeah. And then repeat that on the other side. No, I was like, wait, this is wrong. Okay. So you want to line them up at an angle, and that's kind of what this tool is shaped for as well. It has that rounded edge so as not to be painful and to line up your angle. So get those in there. Just so, and then pull down together. It can be tricky. Again, if you're good at doing this by hand, more power to you. There we go. And then I'm going to baste around all those edges to keep everything together. especially now that we've got our zipper pulls on. We don't want them to fly off, and we want to reinforce that area. And because seam allowances can vary, especially with zipper tape, she does have finished measurements that this piece should be wide in the pattern. So definitely take a minute to make sure they are the right size. Okay. So now we're gonna grab our exterior main panel. That's the lining of that. That's my back side. That's gonna be pockets. I guess I should say that's not my back side. That's just the back side of the bag. Okay. So we're gonna line up the front body panel and clip that in place, and just kind of base that in place. Only on the unfinished edge of the zipper tape right now. Or the zipper panel, not the zipper tape. We just want to keep that together. And then we can move on to the zippered pocket of that panel. So I am doing the overlay piece for the zippered pocket. These are really fun. They're a little bit extra work, but they look really pretty in the end. So I do enjoy making these. I'm adding a little bit of double-sided tape to the outside edge, top and bottom. This pocket does not get left open to turn the bag through or anything like that. So keep that in mind. I'm going to fold this in half before I untape it. And I'll grab my ruler too, just to help me keep it all straight. All right, so we're gonna sew around the outermost edge of this panel. Pull your threads to the back. And then we're gonna cut out the fabric in the middle. And that's one of the main reasons you want to keep your double-sided tape as close to the edge as possible. And then make sure you're not cutting through your overlay piece, especially since I'm using this thinner vinyl. I probably wouldn't even know if I cut through it, like, so just be really gentle. You could also use a pair of like duck-billed scissors. I don't think I have a pair, and if I do, they are long gone. Okay, so there is that. Then we'll grab our zipper. And I've been enjoying the method that I believe Nicole from Sonar uses and Lynn's Handmade. And it's where you add both of your lining pieces at the same time. I just think that's a really handy, like, so there's not a bunch of different start and stopping points. You can just do it all at once. I don't know, maybe it works, maybe it doesn't. But you add them to the back side of your zipper. And I like to line it up so that my zipper pull is way out of the way. So there's one side. And generally you want to cut one of these shorter just to make it quicker and less thinking for me. I just make them the same length and then cut off the excess later. But line them up, make sure they're the same width. Okay, I have added double-sided tape where my zipper is going to be placed. I'm just gonna peel that off. The box that I've cut out is 1/2 inch by 7 inches. Okay. Basically, the way Nicole does it, from what I understand, is has both of her lining pieces attached and then folded down. So this doesn't really work well with the thicker waterproof canvas, but with this printed one, it works nicely. Sorry about my head in the way. Okay. Rude. Come on. Sit still. There we go. I'm gonna lay it so it's nice and centered. Pressing down. Okay. So I'm going to turn this over. I'm going to fold this up and out of the way. And if you need to, you could clip it. Press this nice and flat. And again, if you need to, you can clip it. And then I'm going to flip this over. Keep in mind where your zipper pull is. I like to keep it just out of the way until we get to the very end so that my teeth are nice and lined up. What's kind of cool about this thinner vinyl is that I can really feel the lining fabric through all the layers. So I can feel that I'm catching the lining fabric. So now we're getting to the end. I'm gonna keep my needle in and then I'm gonna push my zipper pull in. I'm gonna like re-zip it closed and then slowly pull it away. And then sew over the opening there. So you can see I've caught my zipper tape and the fabric. And then we're gonna fold that down. And then you can see my pieces are too long, but that's fine. It's not a big deal. We're gonna start over here. And sew it shut. And then we'll be able to just trim off all of the excess. Okay. So now that that is finished, we can grab our front panel again. You want to unzip the flap, pull that back, and we're going to clip lining sides together against the front edge. Make sure your pocket is in the right orientation. So keep in mind when you open it, you want that zippered pocket to be under the flap, basically. You don't want your zipper pocket down here. It's in the wrong place. So we're gonna sew all of that together. And then you're gonna top stitch through both layers. So your lining sides are together, your exterior sides are together, your flap is out of the way. So roll that seam. It's kind of hard to see between your fingers. And this is gonna get covered up with another pocket. It's a really cool looking pocket. I didn't add it to my first one because my vinyl was just super thick. So I didn't think it would work out well for me. Okay, so we got that clipped together. You want to make it so you can see through, and then there is our zippered pocket. Nice easy access, it's all closed off, so that's good. Top stitch through. But it will up your fancy factor if you're into that. Ah, I knew it. I was like, man, my bobbin hasn't run out yet. I must have willed that into the universe. The construction, oh, crap. Oh, crap. I still have to add that front pocket. Oh, no. Okay, forget this. My bobbin running out was a sign and I didn't listen. Can you believe that? I didn't listen. To be fair, the first time I made this bag, I didn't add that piece. Okay. Now that we're done seam ripping, I'm gonna go ahead and work on this pocket piece. This is just waterproof canvas and the accessory weight vinyl, so it's really thin, lightweight. And we're just gonna follow along the pattern piece, making sure those points are pivoted. Feel free to sketch out that seam allowance if you need to. I roughly cut out this piece, as you can see, because I knew it wouldn't matter that much, but you're gonna snip into those points. You don't want to trim down too much seam allowance. You want this pocket to have a really nice seam. I mean, I'm obviously trimming down the extra lining fabric, but other than that. And these are mostly just like relief points so that we can press that seam nice and flat. And then this is where my magnetic snap is gonna go. I'm gonna add that, well, I guess I'll add that now. I was gonna say it's kind of close to the top, so I'm worried top stitching won't go easily. So if you think your machine can't top stitch that closely, then wait until the end. So just like on the front, we're going to take our washer, line it up with that middle point, and mark out our diagonal lines. We're also gonna put our nameplate on this pocket, but I'm gonna wait a little bit. Okay. So this is definitely a tricky piece, but you just want to carefully roll that seam back and forth until you can see both sides well enough. And then if you have like a turning tool, you can press. Okay, now we top stitch. Stitch length is set to 4.5 like I've done the rest of the bag. Just go slow. Pivoting at those corners. nameplate. And I think in the pattern she says she places this about 3 inches up from the bottom. Yeah, that looks good. I keep thinking I'm adding my magnetic snap. I'm like, wait, why is that there? Oh, because I put that there. Okay, great. With this thinner vinyl, you probably want to interface where your nameplate is going. I'm going to grab a scrap of waterproof canvas from the trash. Just something I trimmed off. That should help. And I'm gonna mark how far out those need to go and punch through. So that's just gonna add a little extra something something, and then you add your washer to that. Okay. All right, so definitely make some test folds first, but your pocket should end up, does it look like that in the end? No, I've confused myself. Hold, please. All right, so yeah, it ends up looking like this. The wider is down here, and then you've got your angled piece up there. So one of these stitches is to the lining and one is to the exterior. So we're gonna start on the exterior one first, which is the outermost. So you should have 1, 2, 3 sides and then your fold, and there should be 1 and then 2 at the bottom. So essentially what we're looking for is folds that make these pieces lay flat. So you can see here, these are now even and these are now even. So I'm gonna sew that together. I'm starting at the top and I'm gonna back stitch and then come down the side. This is just an 1/8 of an inch stitch on the exterior to hold that pleat together. Pull your threads to one side or the other if you can, and she is beautiful. So now the next fold is to bring this to this. So there should be one angle we're skipping to line this one flat before it juts out at an angle. And this stitch goes on the lining side. so you can see how it creates this accordion pocket. So we want to repeat that on the opposite side. And I'm like, okay, how do I do that? So again, you want to find what makes this piece lay flat. We've got 1, 2, 3, and now it's flat there. And I would suggest clipping before you sew. So I'm gonna clip this edge here and then lay this out to find how the other side needs to go, just so I know I'm doing it correctly. They're even on both sides. See that, and it is about the same width as the exterior panel, which is what we want. So I'm going to go ahead and clip this and do the exterior first. Make sure your layers are together nicely so that you're sewing through exterior and lining. Otherwise, the effect isn't really the same. Okay. And then this is the next one that we are sewing together. Yay. So now we're gonna grab our front panel. Oh, sorry. Make sure your lining is out of the way. Lay this in place on the front. And because of seam allowances, there could be some slight overhang. Totally okay. Make sure your flap clips into place. And this does go over top here. And we're gonna baste this down, but you don't wanna baste it through your lining. And my top panel is a little bit narrower than it should be, which kind of stinks, but it'll be okay. So I'm gonna start basting all the way around the edge. But we're leaving out the part way up at the top for now until we can move our lining back down and then continue basting. So it creates this really cool piece. Just, you know, it's just the shape of the bag. It's really cool. So you see when it's shut, creates this really fun shape. I'm actually gonna pick these stitches out. I thought I'll make them match, but it's creating a little bit of a buckle and I don't think I need that. So I'm just gonna lay it flat and sew that on. And then trim off my little bit of excess. Yeah, that'll be better. You can see now you've got this great big front pocket. All right, so now we're gonna go ahead and add our bottom panels. I'll start with my lining. I am gonna sew through that bottom pocket. Where did my bottom panel go for my lining? Oh, it fell on the floor, of course. Of course it did. Why wouldn't it? My Peltex is cut a little bit shorter. It was just a scrap piece. And I thought, why not? And I think the pattern says you can butterfly this seam open, and that's not a bad idea. It will help reduce bulk, but the materials I'm using aren't super bulky, so I'm not worried about it. Just gonna do a regular top stitch. And now I can do my exterior bottom panel. Yay, even though I already tried to. All right, so we have the lining all completed for the front panel and the exterior all completed for the front panel. We're gonna set this aside. I'm gonna grab my interior back panel. Ooh, we're running out of pieces. All right, so this is my interior back panel. It's waterproof canvas. I've got Decaville Light adhered to it. And I'm going to make a pleated slip pocket for the back because the elastic holder piece, they're not really my jam. So since I'm using waterproof canvas, I'm not worried about it fraying. Just top stitching that edge and adding pleats. So I cut this piece to about 9 inches tall by like 15 inches wide. So it's probably bigger than I need it to be, but that's okay. In the other one I made for myself, I added 2 like accessory electronic slip pockets. Okay, so I found my center line and I'm measuring 1 inch out on either side of the center, top stitching the exterior of the fabric. And then I'm going to repeat that on the other side. So here is my 1 inch center line, folding the fabric on top of the ruler. creasing, moving the zipper out, or the ruler. Did I say zipper? Maybe. But anyway, for the accessory pockets, I added foam, and it was just so much bulk. I'm sure I explained that in the beginning of this video. So I wanted to do something a little bit different for this one to prevent that from happening again. So I'm centering the pockets to the back panel. I'm going to sew down that 1-inch line. And then you're going to fold those pleats into the center. And then clip them down. And I always cut these pockets a little bit bigger than they probably should be. You can see I've got overhang, but I'm just gonna base them onto the panel and trim off the excess. And then for my cork label, I'm just going to grab a little piece of double-sided tape and sew that on. Okay. I'm going to grab the front piece again. I'm going to attach this to the bottom lining first. Let's flip that over. And you would normally be sewing closer to your Peltex, but like I said, this piece was cut a little bit small. Make sure that your pockets are in the correct orientation. They should all be facing away from your bottom panel. So this is now the inside of the bag. Here are your slip pockets. And then this is going to get attached up here. I'm just gonna go ahead and baste it while I'm here. So then all we need now is our back panel finish, and then we can attach our side panels. We are officially moving on to the back panel. Super exciting. So let's go ahead and start with those D-ring attachments. Well, square rings for me, but oh, there they are. Here's all the pieces I need. So I'll start with my tabs here. Folding long raw edges into the center. I'm gonna use a little scrap of waterproof canvas inside of that seam, actually. I think this vinyl will hold up just fine. I don't have any doubts about that. However, just in case, it couldn't hurt. Just because it is thinner, you know? So I'm gonna go ahead and stick this down to that seam and then fold in. And this is just a really fun way to use up your scraps of waterproof canvas too. Feel a little bit better about that. When I was at a craft show a few weekends ago, I saw someone with a bag whose leather and or vinyl was just completely falling apart, but there was a little piece of the twill tape ribbon holding on to the D-ring. So even though the vinyl had kind of worn away over time, that little piece of twill tape was still there. So just a thought. Okay. So now it's time to add our little triangular overlays. And I messed mine up the first time I did it, so I'm gonna do them a different way. I'm gonna add a piece of double-sided tape to the longest point of our triangle and fold that down. Make a little sailboat with the pyramid on top. So this is really fun. These get laid in the corner. And you're supposed to attach these to it first, following the measurements they provide, etc., which is not hard to do at all. I'm just making this harder than it really needs to be. So that goes like that. It's so cute. I love it. And then you just repeat that on the other side. But the way you normally do it is you sew these pieces together, press it down, and then lay it on the corner of the bag. It's really not complicated. My brain is just like, no, not right now. So I'm just laying this in place. What's really cool about this method is it's keeping it out of your seam allowances, creating excess bulk, but still adding a ton of stability to this connector. So genius, I love it. So then you just sew that corner little piece on. And you could even make it a fun accent fabric if you wanted as well. That could be really cool. So I would suggest adding maybe like a Decaville light to this back panel. I don't know that the Peltex is the best choice, at least with my materials, as it made the side panels of the bag extremely difficult to sew, because you're fighting two pieces of Peltex with two pieces of Peltex that create this really strong corner at the bottom back of the bag. I was like, this is not fun. So I think Decaville light would still give you a good amount of structure without being too hard to sew. You could even use crud, my brain is dead. Sophie's Plus. That one would work well too. All right, so now we can move our lining out of the way. I think that's another reason I don't want to add Peltex, is I have added this extra little bit of fabric that's going to help stabilize the bag too. All right, so now we want to grab our ruler and work on the back overlay. This is the handle overlay. I'm gonna grab some double-sided tape. You wanna fold the long raw edges into the center, or at least up a little bit. Down, I should say. Up and out of the way, down and out of the way. Dorothy has been watching a lot of Sesame Street recently, so I have How Many Cookies Today stuck in my head. It's a great time. This piece is cut about 1/2 inch wider than it needs to be. Oh, about 1 inch wider. And that's just so you can make sure to lay over all the bulk of the straps easily. So I'm gonna measure, I think it's like 2 3/4 down. I'm gonna do 2.5 inches down from the top, just because I felt like it was a little low on my first one. We'll do 2 2/4. And that's where I'm gonna lay the straps. I do really like how the straps are set up on this bag though. I think it's really cute and really easy to do on another bag as well. Any other bag, really. So we've got our backpack straps, and I want them to be sitting kind of the same way. So these go in the center. And if you want to angle them out, you can. I think that looks nice. And then this handle goes on either side of that. Like so. And I'm gonna baste all that into place, and then we'll add our overlay. And then the overlay. And with the overlay, you could actually have a little bit of fun and decide if you want the overlay to cover your lining fabric that's showing to make it an even sneakier slip pocket, or maybe another method. You can also add rivets to the back. I don't intend to add rivets to the back. It's not a look I'm going for. You could also add like the key ring connector that is in some of the Lynn's Handmade backpacks. Could do that. So I'm just gonna line these edges up right next to each other. Cover that piece, covering all of those handles really nicely. I'm gonna sew that into place. Because this vinyl is so thin, again, not in a bad way, I'm not having any issues sewing over that bulk. So I'll go ahead and add another row of stitches up here to help reinforce. And then for symmetry, you could do another one down below. I'm having fun, why not? Okay. And that's your back panel pretty much finished. All you're gonna need to do now is add the slide adjusters, and we're gonna do that right at the end. So you can just wrap these up, keep them out of the way. Keep that strap out of the way as well. We're gonna grab our exterior and put the bottoms touching. Sometimes the things I say, I'm like, could you have picked better words for that maybe? Put the bottoms touching. Make the bottoms touch? No. All right, so you want the bottom of the back to be touching the bottom panel of the bag. We're gonna sew that into place. Oh no, I had some shifting happen. Did you see that? Did you see what I did? Not ideal, but it's fine. Where did the shifting start? Okay, there we go. And now we're gonna top stitch that horrendous looking seam. And now the top of the back panel will be attached to the top of the front panel. I'm gonna use some heavier clips for that because the ones I have ain't cutting it. So you should have your exteriors right sides together, your linings right sides together. And the side panels are not attached, of course. Make sure everything is lining up pretty good. And we'll sew that together. And this doesn't get top stitched or anything like that. As far as I know. And now we want to put wrong sides together, not right sides together. And we're going to baste everything along the side. So you could put your exterior in your lining or your lining in your exterior. I'm gonna put my lining in my exterior to start with, and then flip that to attach the side panels. So, gonna start by lining up my bottom seam of the bag. Clip into place. And then just kind of work your way from there. Make sure that back panel starts to sit nicely. And then any extra fabric we can trim away. So like up here, we've got a little extra, and that overlay, we've got some extra. We want those seams to be nice and even. Nice and as even as possible, I should say. And we're already basted at that zipper. So that's handy. Okay. So there's that. My pockets are all in good shape. So again, we're gonna focus on that back panel. I'm feeling really good about my interfacing choices this time around. I think it's gonna be maybe a little bit slouchy on the back, but once you fill it with stuff, it's not really gonna be an issue. Okay, so that's all together. And then that's all together. And we're gonna baste around that part of the bag. Baste, 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 baste. Let's do some basting. Baste, baste, baste. And then trim away all of your threads, any extra fabric, etc. Look at that, more threads. Get out of here. Get on, get. All right, I'm gonna work a little bit smarter this time, and I'm gonna start at the panel I've already basted together and stop at the panel I've already basted together so that I'm not sewing around the entire thing, because I don't need to. Make sure your hardware is out of the way. Folding the bottom panel in half to find the center. And then we're gonna unzip it and flip it so that the wrong sides, well, the lining side is facing out. So yeah, this is much floppier than the other one I made, but I'm not mad at it. At least not yet, I should say. There's still time. Well, that's a nice view. All right, so now we're gonna grab double-sided tape. I'm gonna use 3/8 inch wide. That is our seam allowance for attaching these panels. So this should be perfect. And remember that these panels are mirror image. So if you have two panels that look exactly the same, they're not right. And what's really cool about the waterproof canvas for binding, or maybe even any binding, is that it's gonna give these side panels quite a bit of structure, which is fun. Make sure we find the center of the side panel. The sides will line up, but the bottom won't, because it's not the same exact shape. So when you're finding that center, keep that in mind, or just use the pattern piece because it is marked on the pattern piece. And then the flat part goes towards the back. So keep that in mind. And then we're gonna line up the center. That is my back, that is flat. Okay, great. Oh my goodness, this is gonna be so easy to put together. I can't even tell you how excited I am. So right here is where, with the other one I made and the other one I helped put together, the 2 layers of Peltex on the back and the 2 layers of Peltex on the bottom were just butting right up against each other, making it a corner. And you can't sew a curve when you're fighting those 2 pieces. So that's why I decided to go with Decaville Light and 1 piece of Peltex for the bottom. Because I definitely want the bottom to have a good amount of structure, and you still want the back panel to have a good amount of structure too, but you also want to be able to finish the bag without giving up and cursing. Which again, that really isn't the pattern's fault, it's the materials I chose. And I like to use my table to help me hold up the bag. And then for the curve on the top, you just kind of pinch everything together as you go, basically. Oh yeah, that is lovely, lovely, lovely. So I'm gonna start on this side, and you wanna just push out of the way at an angle the rest of the bag and just focus on where you can. And then make sure you stick to that 3/8 inch seam allowance. And the tape will prevent the need for staples, and you're just gonna go nice and slow. So I'm getting to that curve. So what I'm doing is I'm slowly pulling and pushing. And again, I don't have that Peltex fighting me. So that's nice. I'm leaving my needle in and pushing the bottom out of the way so I can get a nice flat section, and continuing on. Leave your needle in, find another flat section, continue on. And this is where, if you're making this bag on a domestic machine, you might have some trouble, but I would just say, you know, skip the Decaville or the Peltex. Now we're ready to add binding to this side panel. And then I'm gonna do the other side panel as a time lapse so that it's nice and quick for us both. Okay, I've got pieces of binding prepped here. I like to cut one end that trapezoidal angle. And you can even do like a really rough measurement of how much you're actually gonna need and save the rest for another little bag or something. I guess I could tell you. So there's 38 inches of binding. I'm adding 1/2 inch wide double-sided tape to my 1 inch piece of waterproof canvas. This was cut with a rotary cutter so that there won't be any fraying. I should say there shouldn't be any fraying in the foreseeable future. I'm gonna start on the back panel and just fold over the binding, covering that raw edged seam. Pinching it as you go. You want to make sure there's more fabric on the back side than on the side you're looking at while you sew, so that you know for sure you're catching everything. And I've really been loving using the waterproof canvas that's printed because you don't see as many errors that way. If you wanted to use a wider tape to put the waterproof canvas binding on, you probably could. I like the 1/2 inch because it's holding on to the seam, but it isn't popping out past where I'm gonna be sewing it on, so that dust doesn't catch to it, I guess. I don't know. I also don't have any tape wider than that on hand, so I guess that's a good reason too. So angle to reduce bulk. I'm trying to keep this on camera as best as I can. I apologize if it's gone out of frame. Okay. Now we will attach. Oh, crap. I think I pulled too hard on my bobbin thread just now and it started to, unwind. So I'm gonna tighten that back up. I think I'll probably run out of bobbin before I attach the binding. Probably forget I said that though. what is that called? Bobbin whiplash or something? Not what you want to do. All right, so like I said, I'm going to speed through this next side. You can see there is the binding attached. So I am just attaching the side panel, clipping it into place, and then Dorothy comes downstairs to show me a new pair of shoes she got from Grandma. It's too cute. Oh, there she is. And then she wants to play with all my clips, and then she starts throwing them on the ground, and I have to pick them all up. And then she finds something to dance with. I don't know what's going on, but all while adding binding. All right, time to turn it. You need help? You want me to open it?
Yeah.
Rolled over on my strap. Okay, and you want to press along those seams, pushing that binding in pretty well. What you doing, baby? You playing with a USB drive? Yeah. Nice. And the color name of this vinyl is Vintage Rose. And it really is just so pretty. So there's the inside of the bag. And then zip your flap shut. And then there's that expandable pocket and the snap closure on top of that. It's so pretty. I really like it with the addition of the side pockets, especially. Like, they're super useful and handy. So all that's left to do now is add our slide adjusters. And all I'm going to be doing is riveting those into place. So I'm going to slide one end over the slider. You need me to open it? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, ready?
Yeah.
Open. And then you want to come over and then under your D-ring or square ring. You're then going to want a lot of slack around the center bar. And you're going to come above the center bar and then back under the center bar. And then this is where you would sew and or rivet. So let me clip that in place and show you a little bit better. But then I'm just gonna do the other one off camera as well as riveting it. So that's what it looks like. This comes up over the center bar, under the center bar, through your square ring, up and over the center bar, and then back under to create your adjustable strap. Make sure that this is a nice loop, there's no twisting, etc. before you add your rivet. And that is it for this bag. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. I know I had a blast making this bag. It's technically my second and a half one. I helped a friend finish one, and it just keeps getting better. Thanks for watching.